Shabbat Shalom. There is an old Yiddish saying that love is wonderful, but love with noodles is better. And I want you to keep that in mind, the noodles, because it is one of the answers that is given to a very difficult question that arises from this morning's Torah portion. And it's a phrase that, if you know anything about the Jewish tradition, is familiar to you. And that is, in this morning's portion, V'etchanan, we recite the first paragraph of the Shema, V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, and you should love the Lord your God. So there's a question. How can the tradition command us to love? After all, love is, for most of us, the spontaneous overflow of feelings and not something that can be commanded or forced. And I'm going to give you three different answers from Rambam, from the totality of the tradition, and then a somewhat mystical answer. And in there will be noodles. Let's start with the Rambam. I want to say that the Rambam gives the answer, that is, our greatest Jewish legalist and philosopher gives the answer that our bar mitzvah gave this morning. When Noah talked about the fact that, yes, this has been a very difficult time, but as he helped others, he was moved to gratitude and his heart was changed, which I want to say I found particularly beautiful, given that I'm going to assume that your last name, Noah Laviv, comes from Lev, which means heart. So the fact that his heart was changed from action is what the Rambam says happens when you do the mitzvot. Maybe you don't start out loving God, but once you do the mitzvot and you appreciate the wonder of what God has given us, and you feel a sense of gratitude for the world and for the Torah and for the tradition, you come to love God. A little bit of a twist on that is the love with noodles. Because, as I have said many times before, I think in some ways we define love mistakenly. We assume that love is an emotion, but in fact, love is an enacted emotion. It's what you do with what you feel. You can say you love me, but if you say you love me and give me noodles, I really know you love me. And so to act lovingly is to love. And therefore, when it says you should love the Lord your God, what it means is act lovingly towards God, which means act kindly towards other human beings. Do the mitzvot that God has given you to show your appreciation. Don't think that by saying you love someone or even feeling you love someone, that you really love them. Only if you demonstrate it in the way you move in the world is it real love. I also want to give you a third answer, a somewhat different answer. This from the Sfat Emet, one of the great Hasidic commentators on the Torah, whose very deep and sometimes mystical interpretations can be visited again and again and again because they are unfathomable, not in the sense of not understandable, but in the sense that you never reach the bottom. So this is what the Sfat Emet says about the command to love God. He says, the Torah, we know, does not instruct us to do anything that we cannot do. The Torah doesn't say fly. It doesn't say be perfect all the time. It doesn't say never sin. It doesn't tell us to do anything we can't do. So when it says, love the Lord your God, we have to assume that the Torah knows that we can do it. Now, we're human beings. We know that there are some people and some things in this world that we cannot love. We just can't. We might want to, but we can't do it. Not to belabor a point that I've mentioned before, I will never love mushrooms. I wish I did, but I can't do it. I've tried them a billion times, always with the same reaction. It is the opposite of love. So says the Sfat Emet, not about mushrooms or noodles. This is becoming very a very Epicurean and a very culinary sermon. So says the Sfat Emet, if you know that the Torah only commands that which you can do, and you know that there are certain people or things that you cannot love, the only conclusion is that in the heart of every Jew, there is already love for God. It's there. It exists. And the point of the tradition is to uncover that love, to find it. The point of the tradition is to unveil the love that is already there. So when the Torah says you shall love the Lord your God, what it's saying is find that love that is in you and bring it out for yourself and for the world. All these lessons, how action can bring us to love, how love involves action, and how love can be buried in the heart, but it can be discovered and brought forth. All of them and more are in that simple phrase, v'ahavta, and you shall love the Lord your God. At every time, in difficulty and in joy, we can find that love. We can act on it. Thereby fulfill this great mitzvah of loving God and God's world with noodles.